discussion on cross-border talks that will deal this time with the political and social situation in Czechia. We've been accustomed to Czechia playing a relatively important role in the international context in the war in Ukraine, with news about its strong pro-Western, pro-American, anti-Russian stance, with news about its leading general visiting the front line in Ukraine, etc. But apparently, life is more than just fighting for the right cause in the war in the international relations. So recently, there were huge protests in Czechia with up to 70,000 people, which shook the political picture of the country and showed that there are also issues of internal rather importance. So we are now going to discuss all that with Veronika Sušová-Salminen, a Czech journalist who is also a writer for Argument. Veronika, could we start first of all with some kind of a general context about the political and socio-economic picture in Czechia? What is the current situation in this regard?
So hello everybody, thank you for invitation, and I would maybe start with the socio-economic situation, and then we can move to the political situation together with it. So probably as you know, the Czech Republic in general is seen as a success story of the transformation. However, this is only the facade. The reality is that in last 30 years, the Czech Republic turned into something what is called as a basically dependent free market economy, and as such you can imagine that at this moment the economy will struggle very much due to the results and consequences of the war in Ukraine. I mean now economic consequences and social consequences. So the Czech Republic at the moment is, I think, having a second and much more harsher hit than was pandemic. We know that pandemic was very difficult, especially for countries with a strong tertiary sector. It means for countries which are very much dependent on service sector and on financialization. Czech Republic is having, of course, strong service sector, but it is still economy very much dependent on the production, as you know, very much on the production, which is very connected with the Germany, with the German production chains. We are part of it, and as such, the Czech economy is the economy with high energy intensity sector. This is an important thing because you can imagine that for such economy, the high prices of electricity, high prices of gas, and 100% dependency on gas from Russia via Germany, because we stopped to buy gas already a long time ago directly from Russia, and we are buying from Germany with higher price because Germany is taking the extra money for it. This will mean huge problems. The problems are coming in really like rolling on, since the energy market is under the pressure. And I would like to underline here that the problem with energy market in the Czechia started before the war. They started in autumn of last year, when we have bankruptcy of several providers of gas for households and firms. These were private firms who were usually in between mediators and who were not able to handle the high prices already at the time. And since the market is very much liberalized and deregulated, this happened situation when people suddenly didn't have provider, and suddenly they were in the situation then to get a new provider. It meant for them to pay, for example, 1,000 euro just for prepayment money, which was for some households, older people, but also normally working people, totally huge issue. And unfortunately, this government we have now, the new government at the time, didn't know how to deal with the crisis. Now we are, of course, started the war in Ukraine, and the situation on the energy markets became to be worse and worse. The energy prices are rising more and more, but also the normal living costs prices are, of course, going up. So if you look at the Eurostat, you see the Czech Republic has not only the highest prices for energy in the European Union. However, it is the biggest producer of, or among the biggest producer of energy in the world and in the European Union. But you will see also that Czech Republic has one of the highest inflation outside of Eurozone and even in the Europe. For August, I have actual date. It is 17.2%. So you can imagine that this is really pushing on the household and on normal people, how much they can spend and how much everything is costing more. We have to also add to it that the newest statistics says that the real incomes have fallen already 10%, which is a huge fall. It's a really combination of several factors which are making the situation in the Czech Republic worse. Some analysts already talk about the current situation as a next fall in the living standards on the same level like was a transformation recession in 1990s, in the early 1990s, together with shock therapy and all these things, some even say that it will be worse. It will be something what happened in 1953 when the communist government did monetary reform, and basically the majority of Czech lost all their savings over the one night. So this is the general picture I can give about the socio-economic situation. And of course, in this situation, you have war, and you have the government, which is very active on the foreign political sphere, doing big gests, but these gests are not, reflected on the internal domestic policy.
Okay, could you tell us what are the forces, the political forces that comprise, make the government, and who are in opposition, and what are in fact the government's reactions to all those socio-economic issues?
Okay, we have a relatively new government because the last parliamentary elections were in 2021, in the autumn 2021, and we have the government which is composed of five different political parties. Their profile ideologically is conservative or center right, if you want. The leading political force is so-called Občanská demokratická strana, which is translated as Civic Democratic Party, and this is the one of the oldest party in the system, the party which was connected with the privatization, the regulation, one of the really like strongest pillar of neoliberal austerity measures and other ideology in the Czech politics. Uh, Today it is still the same. Basically, they didn't change despite the world is changing, and we know that neoliberalism doesn't work and it's harming. Despite the fact that 8 years ago they lost basically elections very harshly because they were having wrong political choices at the time of crisis, meaning during the global financial crisis and the austerity measures they were imposing on the country. And then you have there the smaller subjects which are traditional conservative, that's top 09. That is also very austerity oriented neoliberal political force, and together with them Christian Democrats, which are usually in the middle. They are not so, they are centrist, but they always go in any government which will give them the space. So they are this kind of type of force, but rather, of course, on the right spectrum. And then next two parties are relatively new. It's Pirati, so Pirat Party, and so-called Stan, which is a party which was created out of the municipal politicians. Municipal politicians created own party, which was basically based the election success was very much based on the popularity of municipal politicians because they are usually seen more neutral, they are local, they do often better jobs than the politicians in the center. So this is like five party five-party government, and it's necessary to adhere that they could form government and they could so-called win election only thanks to the fact that they created first time in the history of the Czech modern political system election coalition. So they were in the elections as a group. They were not for themselves, but they formed two coalitions, and these two coalitions together were able to collect enough voices, enough strong position to win, and to get to the government. And why? The reason is that all their program, all their efforts in last 80 years were based on one thing: to get Andrej Babiš and his successful political project called ANO out of the government. Some commentators call this as anti-Babiš program. So it means the only way was to fight Babiš and his government, but it's of course nothing constructive, and it's nothing what will what will prepare you for such crisis like we have now. It has nothing. It's absolutely cheap kind of policy. So they are basically locked in this in two type of heritage: the heritage of anti-Babiš and the easy politics of criticizing the Andrej Babiš and ANO and populists, and then the longer burden, which is the resilience of the neoliberal thinking. They cannot think outside of the box of neoliberal thinking, so they believe strongly in free market. They believe strongly that nothing should be regulated, and they believe strongly that the state budget should be balanced and that the fiscal strict policy should be kept. And they came in the government with these two things, and suddenly the war in Ukraine happened, and the next blast of crisis came in the country, which is probably worse than was pandemics because of the conditions I was describing and circumstances of the economy. And they basically were not able in half year do nearly anything to get things better. So we will come to it in a while, but this is basically the general picture of the Czech situation now.
Okay, that's the political situation, but are there really any measures that counter the rising prices of energy or other issues that plague the population?
No, that is the issue, that the government last half year, and we have to realize that the crisis is getting worse and worse. We have seen this huge rise of electricity prices and also gas prices. You remember that few weeks ago the electricity was for 1,000 euro for one. I don't know if kilowatt hour or megawatt hour, but it was a huge burst of price. The government, basically the government ministers and the government is all the time repeating the formula. They are repeating the mantra about that we have to be careful, that this is a regulation, that it is in interference in the market to do whatever it's not needed, or they are speaking about some kind of general thinking. For example, okay, price capping we can do, but we can do it only as all Europe. We will propose the all European solution, and then it will be done. But they really did only cosmetical small things, like for example, they put down VAT for the diesel and benzene, and they put the bio component out, and they offered some kind of so-called targeted social help for people, which targeted means usually that you have to fight with huge bureaucracy to be even eligible for some support from the state, and eventually you find out that the support is not helping you at all because it's too small. So they were very minimalistic and much more than helping people and helping industry, because you have to realize that this is not just households. But when industry starts to collapse because industry will not have energy to produce, then it will be huge social crisis in the country, because you will have jobless people. It can really end very badly. But they didn't show any way of some kind of constructive and systematic solution for the people. Instead of it, it's really much more, any answer they have is based on the war in Ukraine. They say we are at war, So you have to be now more modest. You cannot expect they will have cheap prices because Putin wants to conquer us and we are fighting for our existence. Basically, they are putting this kind of narrative to people. And if you say, okay, but we cannot destroy our own economy because of this situation, we have to like kind of try to do something, then they will tell you something like you are agent of Putin and so on. So there is really a huge already narrative which is normalizing war and is using war to discipline people, to make them shut up and silence them, which was clear about this demonstration. And it is not, I think, solving anything. And to illustrate how really hopeless and incompetent this government is now the newest steps they did after this half of year of talks that we cannot put price caps, we cannot regulate the price of electricity and gas for households because it would be entrance in the market forces and we cannot, and then talks about how there will be European solution which didn't come, by the way, as the last summit has shown to us. They came with the fact that okay, we are putting now price capping, so we are limiting the price maximum, we are putting roof on the price of electricity and gas. This price is of course still meaning for every household that they will pay more. This cap still means that people will pay more than they are paying now, and that they will. It means that there will be more money still going out of their pockets. And it is also coming too late because if you compare, and we of course compare, for example, situation with Slovakia. In Slovakia, they did price capping already in the beginning of year, and now I will speak in Corona. To you can convert basically euro is about 25, 26 koruna. So we are in the situation then the limit for the price 1 kilowatt hour of electricity will be for the households now between 7 and 9 koruna. In the beginning of year it was 3 koruna. So all this money were lost if they would be quicker and reacted quicker and did however what they had to do, which is to do the dysregulation, to stop the craziness which was going on because the prices were very. We were today. I was today seeing the prices, and what it would mean without the cap. How much would people pay as household if you have household and you are normally heating water and heating your house by electricity. So you would pay per year 7,400 euro only for this without the cap, and with the cap it will be something like 5,000 or something. So it's huge money. We are speaking about really huge money with the average salaries which are really much more less than this, and this is really for some families suicide, social suicide. So they eventually came to the thing which they were refusing half year, and half year they were talking to people. Eventually they did it too late, in a situation which was much more disadvantage for the ending consumers. And we still don't know what they will do for industry because the program from industry should be announced tomorrow.
How is the population answering to this redistribution of wealth towards the energy distributors, I guess, and the lack of measures or the late coming of measures?
So you have actually two ways how to answer. Well, of course, some people are, as everywhere in our region, unfortunately, just passive and they don't do anything and they just suffer. But of course, otherwise, you have two measures, two possibilities. First way, which will be probably reflected already, which will be the reflection of the current policies of the government, are upcoming elections. There are the elections for municipalities and elections for Senate. So this we can expect that the governmental parties will be not performing very well. We already see it in polls. In polls of for elections, you can see that Babiš Ano is rising. It has support over 30% of potential, of course, of voters. Also, the classical populists, that is Okamura SPD, that is also oppositional party, main oppositional party with Ano. but much more like really populist. I don't think ANO is classical populist party. So they are of course rising in support, and we will probably see as usually that opposition will take more Senate seats, and the government will also lose some municipal strongholds. It's possible very much. That's first. And second is outside of the formal political process, outside of election process and campaigns and so on, that is protests. And what we have seen already was 2 weeks ago, now it's gonna be soon, there was a huge demonstration or huge protest in Prague on the main Wenceslav Square, and here I have to add that to have nearly full Wenceslav Square is seen as a strong political message. It's traditional place where the people gather for political demands. It was the place where communism ended under the huge demonstration there. Full Wenceslav Squares is something. Well, this protest didn't fill totally the Wenceslav Squares, but police, they said it's conservative estimation, say 70,000 people. There, 70,000 people on the demonstration or protest, which was organized by really fringe, marginal political forces which has no any representation in parliament. In last elections, they were performing very weakly. They had really like 3%, 2%, 1.5%, such kind of support, so very marginal. And they really were able to mobilize people in the situation, in the environment where mobilization is not very common. It's needed to say that the Czechs are not very much taking streets. So when they start to take streets like this, there is something already happening, and there are the issues happening. And we also, by the way, in the country with huge regional differences, we have to realize that if you go to visit Prague, okay, you don't see the real Czechia, because Prague is one of the among the 5 or 6 most richest regions in the European Union. Prague is very rich, but if you go outside of Prague, people are living different lives. They have different incomes, and they have really, these problems are for them really, really, really difficult. So also people from the outside of Prague came to demonstrate on the Wenceslas Square. That's clear that they were showing that they're discontent, that they are not really happy what the government does. And we will see, because this protest was first in many, and it seems that there will be next protest going on this week, which I think Communist Party of Bohemia and Moravia is organizing on own action. And then the biggest one, which should be in the beginning of October, should be the protest of biggest trade union confederation. Unfortunately, it's, in my opinion, too late. Unfortunately, they should really start campaign sooner, but we have to add here one thing, one factor, which is important to understand the strategy of this trade union confederation, and that is the fact that the boss of confederation is going to probably be the candidate for the presidency in January 2023, where we have elections, and he probably doesn't want to make anybody angry. You know, it's he is probably wanting to, because already I know that there were in play also discussion about possibility of strike, general strike, and so on. But this was also not very much welcomed by the confederation at the moment, what I know about. So these are the way how it is. It is the people are showing that they are worried, and that they really are. They see the government which is doing nothing for them. And by the way, this is not just some few people, 70,000 people who go to the square. If you look at the other polls, now the newest was published, and this newest poll was saying clearly that only 4% of respondents, 4%, are content with the job which government is doing, and 74% are unhappy, or rather unhappy with the policies this government is doing regarding of energy crisis. So we are in this situation. We will see how it will be shown in the future. I am afraid that the polarization will continue, because we are already now polarized society, and the polarization will continue more harshly with the government which is incompetent, and which is rather to cover their own incompetence, they prefer to use really war narrative, polarization narrative, putting people, saying, because about the demonstrators and about the organizers together, the Prime Minister of Czech Republic said they are fifth column. They are serving Putin. So this is the arrogance and total, absolute arrogance and impossibility to see what is going on. And we should remember that this government is also chairman of the European Union now, and should also form some kind of European policies. And we see that they are really unable in all level of the of direction they should do something. So I think people are angry, and I'm also afraid that polarization is one thing, and other side of polarization will be stronger support for political extremism, unfortunately.